What's up, guys? So as this channel has progressed, I've slowly been collecting a bunch of different products to make videos on. And in doing that, there's one company that I've kind of shied away from, and that company is 8BitDo. I've not shied away from talking about their stuff because there's anything wrong with the company, actually quite the opposite. I think it's pretty well known in the retro gaming community that aside from OEM controllers, these 8BitDo controllers are some of the best ones you can actually get. So naturally, you're gonna wanna get several of them that have different styles to them that would give you a different feel depending on which type of game you're playing. Obviously the M30 Pro here is simulating the Super Nintendo controller, except it has analog sticks. And if you're a big fan of this, you might have looked at their Pro 2 controller, which is literally the same thing, except it has handles, giving you something to actually hold on to while you're playing your games. And they've released controllers that emulate the NES controller. It's a controller that's a TurboGrafx 16 controller or PC Engine, wherever you are in the world. And they have even released what they've dubbed their Ultimate controller, which is their take on a proper Pro controller for the Switch. In collecting these controllers for different consoles, I finally got around to picking up their M30 controller, basically their take on a Sega controller. And I'm gonna be real with you, I wasn't really planning on doing videos on 8BitDo's controllers, but once I got this thing in my hand, I felt I needed to talk about it because there's just something about it. In proper fashion, let's bring you over to the table. We'll unbox it, we'll show you what you get in here. Don't worry, it's not too much. And we'll load up a few games on the emulator and let you get a look at how it actually behaves in game. Let's do that right now. Alrighty. Let's get it. With every 8BitDo product, you do get this very nice Apple-esque unboxing experience. The box itself gives you basically all the information you would need to know for whether or not this would be one of the things you want to purchase. The box itself has this nice little sleeve around it. And you open this bad boy up and your controller is right there. But we'll get to this guy in just a minute. Also in the box, you do get your little startup instruction manual thing. It really just tells you how to pair it to a bunch of different devices, whether that's be your Switch, an Android phone, Windows, or a Mac. You do get your charging cable in here as well. You can never have too many of these, so I always appreciate getting more of them. But yeah, it's a very minimal unboxing. And let's take a look at the actual controller itself. I have an original Sega Genesis controller here, and this thing has never been my favorite controller because just look at this. It feels like an ergonomic nightmare, and I'm curious what Sega was actually thinking whenever they designed this. I've never actually gotten to use one of the 6-button controllers for the Genesis, but it do look a bit more ergonomic, a bit more comfortable, a bit too boomerangy, but it still looks a bit more comfortable. Where Sega started to shine, in my opinion, was when the Saturn controller, which I have one here. Now this guy is comfortable to hold. The button layout actually feels really good. You've got your trigger buttons up on the top, and this is just a very solid feeling controller. And I feel like 8BitDo took a bit more design influence from the Saturn controller than they did either version of the Genesis controller here. Even though this guy is meant to be used with Genesis games. Hell, you can even see that in the other color option for this guy. It is the Japanese color design of the Sega Saturn controller from Japan. The button layout is basically identical to the Saturn controller, as you can see here, and each button does have a very good travel to it and a very solid bottoming out. You can definitely feel when that button has been pressed, so it doesn't feel like you're going to have any missed inputs on this guy. Prior to this guy, I've never been a really big fan of the Sega style D-pad. Something about this just doesn't feel very good to use in my mind. Again, that was kind of remedied with the Saturn controller. The D-pad on this definitely feels more akin to the Saturn controller than it does the Genesis controller. So basically what I'm saying is if you liked the feel of the Saturn controller, you're going to like this guy. As it said in the instruction booklet, this can pair up to a bunch of different devices, whether that be Mac OS, Windows, Android phones, or the Switch. I didn't really get this guy to pair it up with my Switch, as this is going to be more for emulation stuff on my computer, or the Genesis itself whenever I get that Bluetooth adapter. To set it up into those different pairing modes, first things first, you hold down the start button here to actually turn it on, and holding down the start button is also how you turn it off. Whichever button you're holding down, whenever you turn it on, will turn it into that different pairing mode. And luckily they have a handy little cheat sheet on the back of it here to help you remember how to pair it whenever you go to change devices. Put it into switch mode, you would hold the Y button and turn it on. To put it into Android mode, you would hold the B button and turn it on. For Windows, you would hold the X button and turn it on. And for Mac OS, you would hold the A button and turn the thing on. The actual build quality is very solid. It's a slightly different texture on the matte finish than the SM30 Pro has. It made it feel different than I expected. I don't want to say it feels worse. It just is a slightly different than I expected. Absolutely no give anywhere in the plastic, so you know it's very solid. And I'd like to add, some people need to be reminded that not all plastics are created equal. And so while this does feel different than the SM30 Pro here, this is still a very nice plastic. One important thing to note about this dude is while the buttons all do feel really good and the shoulder buttons do feel really good as well, it does only have one set of shoulder buttons. So if you are looking at this for emulating stuff that would require 2 shoulder buttons, you need to go with something like the SM30 Pro, because it does have 2 sets of shoulder buttons, whereas this only does have the one. I would also like to add, while this does say it's for Mac OS, it actually does pair up with an iPad fairly simply. You just set it into that Apple Mac OS pairing setting, and it should give you the option to pull it up in your Bluetooth settings and add it. As you can see, I already have mine set up right there, and it connected without issue. So yeah, let's throw up an emulator on the computer and let's give you guys a feel of how it plays. Alrighty, now that we've got the computer booted up and we've got the controller here, and I did already go ahead and sync the controller to the computer here, as you can see right here. Got the M30 here. We will just open up our OpenEmu, and I'm gonna do this with Sonic 3D Blast. I was playing it the other day, but let's go ahead and load it up. I'm sure you can hear it off in the distance over there. As you can see, input lag on this thing is basically non-existent. And just for consistency's sake, it also plays 32x games, no problem. So yeah, this thing's nice. I would go as far as to say this is my favorite 8BitDo controller. Moving forward, if I'm not needing a controller that needs joysticks or a dual trigger setup, this might be my go-to. It just feels like really good in the hand, and without a stick getting in the way, this is something you could easily just slide into one of those non-used pockets in your backpack. But yeah, this is really nice. I think that's gonna be it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to bringing you even more controller reviews like this one as the days go on. So again, thank you guys for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one, y'all.